We'll call the meeting of the FM Diversion Authority Board to order. Begin with the roll.
Mr. Vaniel.
Here.
Mrs. Sherling. Here. Mr. Pollock. Here. Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn. Yep. Mr. Grinberg. Here. Mr. Campbell. Mr. Whalen.
Here.
Ms. Williams. Here. Ms. Otto. Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Thorsted. Mr. Bradshaw.
Here. A little better.
Thank you. We have the minutes. You have the minutes before you.
Move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Order of agenda, anything to add or change? We have a motion to approve? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Order is in place. Management.
Good afternoon,
Randy?
ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick update on the program, if I can get this to work. There we go. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Kevin, help me out here. This is not the order I'm looking for.
Mr. Chairman, while she's getting that set up, I'm glad that we don't hand these out before city commission meetings, or the mayor would be throwing these at the different commissioners. So.
You gave the governor one of these yesterday.
Are they stress relievers? Is that what they are?
Yes.
That's good.
He's trying to figure out the budget.
Go ahead.
All right, just a quick review of September, our major accomplishments. The RFQ responses for the P3. John is going to talk in detail about that in just a moment. We delivered our mitigation plan to the Minnesota DNR for comment, and we got comments back on that. Eric, did you want to speak about the summary at all? Okay, that's been passed out to the board members. So each of you have a summary of the mitigation plan that we've prepared, just to kind of give you a brief look at what's, a fairly large document. That summary has excellent talking points about what we've proposed for mitigation as a result of the project. The draft technical requirements that's part of the RFP for the P3 procurement have been released internally for review to the different parties. And so that's an ongoing part of preparing for the RFP release in December. We continue with phase one land acquisitions, as well as some opportunistic acquisitions of people coming to us looking to sell their land. As the Corps moves more into their design work, we've been working with them on the southern embankment as well as the Wild Rice River structure. And of course, we're continuing in-town construction, and Ty will give you an update on that in just a few moments. For October, today we're going to recommend a short list for board approval for our P3 proponents. And again, John will give you some details on that in just a bit. We continue to develop the RFP documents for December. At the end of this month, on the 26th and 27th of October, we're holding a workshop to do not final, but a pretty intense scrub of the technical requirements. So they're out there for review now. We're getting comments in. We'll hold a 2-day workshop and look over those comments and come up with our final approach to the technical requirements. On Monday, there are several from the board and elsewhere going to meet with both OMB in Washington, as well as with the Assistant Secretary of the Army. Mr. Mayor, if you want to say a word or two about that.
We're just going to reconfirm some of the issues of the project, and then with OMB, we like to make sure that we're in the budget for next year. So that's what we're going to visit with them again. And Mayor Williams and myself are going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the valley and what we think should be going forward. Mayor Williams, do you want to say anything? About the same?
About the same, thanks.
The 2017 Diversion Authority annual budget will be presented to the Finance Committee on November 9th, and then once that committee is ready, it'll come to the full Diversion Authority for adoption before we end the year. Phase one land acquisition, you'll probably hear me say this for the next year or so. We continue to work on that. Initiating the I-29 conceptual design, and one of the contracting actions that you'll see today is actually to begin that design work on I-29 on the southern end of the project. And then we continue our in-town construction. And again, Ty will give you an update on that. So John, I think you're up now. Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. Aaron's going to give you a quick core update.
Apologize, I don't have any slides. I let Terry Williams go on vacation, and so you guys don't get any handouts. But the Corps is continuing to work on the design of the wild rice structure, also on the southern embankment. We're working on finalizing those alignments. We also have reached out and met with Commissioner Landwehr from the DNR last week. We're working to have some contacts with the governor as well to continue to have coordination with them. As I mentioned last week when I was in town, the Corps is very committed to this project and moving forward with it. We anticipate award of our diversion inlet contract here towards the end of the month, October, possibly early into November. So we're working through some processing issues there. Nothing to be concerned about. So it just might take us a little bit of extra time to get that contract awarded, but we're in good shape. We've obviously been in a lot of coordination with our vertical team, and everybody is supportive of continuing on our path forward and working to, where we can, minimize the impacts to the environment and people. But permanent flood protection for Fargo-Moorhead is critical. On the P3 front, working with the RFQ, the Corps was involved in that entire process. It was an exciting process for us to take part in, and we were officially observers of that process, but we definitely learned a lot. It was a very good process, and I'm sure you'll hear about the outcomes of that more, but no matter what, it seems like there's definitely going to be some very strong firms that are going to be allowed to move forward with your guys' concurrence. We're pretty confident that we're going to be able to get a really good project, and at the end of the day, we'll all be very pleased with that. So the Corps is excited to be moving forward with the alternative financing, the public-private partnerships. Remember, this is the first one the Corps has ever done, really the first one in the nation as it pertains to waterworks. So thank you guys, and you should definitely be proud of those efforts that you're putting forward towards that. And it's definitely going to change how we implement infrastructure in the United States. So any questions?
Aaron, any high-level purpose, tone, overview of the meeting with Landwehr, Commissioner Landwehr?
You know, in general, it was a positive meeting, just, you know, open discussions, and really we talked about having future discussions, really going through the concerns that the state has and working through that process. So really it was just a starting point to open up the lines of communication after their release of their findings of fact. The Corps has a team that's going to be going through that findings of fact, and then ultimately we'll try to sit down with the DNR and work through issues and see what issues can be resolved, see what issues might be a little bit more significant, but try to come to some sort of solution where we can move forward.
Anything else? Questions for Aaron? Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Were you gonna, you're standing up, or were you gonna give an update? Or? Oh. Okay. Moving on to John then?
Yes, we're Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Diversion Authority Commission. Today, here to provide a brief overview of the SOQ selection process and the shortlisting. This is for the P3 portion of the project, which is a little bit of a refresher, is the diversion channel and related infrastructure that would start from the inlet and move north approximately 30 miles. It's a channel related infrastructure, including bridges, utility relocations, and railroad tracks. This process started out on July 14th, as you may recall, when this board issued the RFQ, which was the request for qualifications. That was a comprehensive document which asked market participants to submit their statement of qualifications, the SOQs, regarding their ability to complete the diversion channel and the associated infrastructure. During August, the RFQ included comprehensive criteria for the evaluation. That was broken down into individual categories, as we'll talk about later, and further developed into some evaluation criteria that could be utilized by the evaluation team in evaluating the SOQs. On September 14th, as you may recall, we received 6 statements of qualifications from the industry. These teams were very good teams. I think we should be excited as a diversion authority for the industry interest. All of the teams were very capable of performing this project, and so the competition was fierce among the bidders. On September 15th, the SOQs were distributed to the evaluation team, and on October 4th and 6th, the 6 teams were interviewed by the evaluation team. Who were your members of the evaluation team? We had Bob Zimmerman, Nathan from the city of Fargo, Jason from Cass County, Jeff Volk, who was there on behalf of the Cass County Joint Water Resource District, Brian Berg from Clay County, and Kent Costin representing the Diversion Authority as the fiscal agent. As Aaron alluded to, Army Corps of Engineers were present as observers. They did not have a vote, but they were encouraged to participate and offer their opinions and advice. Advisors, myself, Ernst & Young, Ashurst, and CH2M were also present. We did not have a vote. How did the SOQ process work? The RFQ comments and SOQ submissions were submitted to Bruce Spiller, the designated Diversion Authority representative. He was responsible to coordinate those submissions and distribute them to the evaluation team. The advisors were then to provide support and resources to the evaluation team as needed. The evaluation team then recommended a short list of 3 or 4. As you may recall in the RFQ specifically indicated we would only shortlist 3 or 4, not more than 4. That recommendation was then reviewed by the executive directors. Mike will be here just to give a brief comment about that later on. That recommendation was then forwarded to the Diversion Finance Committee yesterday, who made a recommendation to shortlist the 4 that will be 4 bidders that we'll be talking about later. And then the Cass County Joint Water Resource District met this morning to provide a concurrence with the shortlisting of the 4. And then we're here today for your approval as the Diversion Authority to shortlist 4 of the respondents to start the RFP process. The interviews, there were 4 interviews on October 4th. There were 2 interviews on October 6th. They were led by myself as a moderator and facilitator. The interviews were specifically limited to 75 minutes, 30 minutes for a presentation, and 45 minutes for a question and answer session. Some of the questions were sent out early to the teams, and some were asked at the interview to gauge their understanding of the project, along with some of the issues that may have been raised in their individual submissions. The interviews were specifically limited to items contained within their SOQs, as were the entire evaluation process. Teams were limited to 8 attendees. That was a strict rule. Even if a team wanted to have observers in the room, they were not permitted. Only 8 attendees for each team. The SOQ evaluation report, which I've handed out to you, is a summary, and that's attached to the back of the resolution approving it. That summarizes the extensive work that was performed by your evaluation team. I'd like to thank the evaluation team members. They put in an incredible amount of time into this process. Each of the SOQs were quite significant. Some were in excess of a binder to a binder and a half of materials, along with the time that they spent on individual reviews of each of those 6 submissions. They also attended multiple consensus meetings along with the interviews, so they put a significant amount of time into the process. The report explains the criteria that we utilized, and this is also reflected in the RFQ. But in general, I'll just briefly go over the evaluation criteria. 20 points were given to organization and management, and this was just looking at the overall structure of the individual teams and how they had worked together in the past and how they had structured their organization moving forward. 50 points were given to technical qualifications. We had 15 points that were given to technical experience, and the technical experience was largely based upon a look-back period. What had they performed in the past? How had they performed the jobs? And were the work projects that they had indicated, were they relevant to this project? And did they demonstrate the experience that would be needed to build this type of a project? 20 points were given to technical capability, which we commonly referred to as looking forward. Looking forward means the team that they've assembled and the experience that they've had, can they deliver the project to the Diversion Authority on time, on budget, and in accordance with the technical proposal that they will ultimately give to us. 2.5 points were given to safety. 12.5 points were given to project understanding, which is really an overview of the project, the major criteria involved in the project, have they properly identified areas of concern, areas that they need to address, and do they understand how the project elements fit together in a comprehensive nature so that they can deliver the project to the Diversion Authority. And then financial qualifications and capability were given 30 points. I would note in this area that all 6 of the teams were clearly financially capable of delivering the project. We utilized some of the expertise of Ernst & Young in this area, but I just wanted to emphasize that each of the teams were clearly capable of delivering the project from a financial manner. That area was split further into 20 points for financial qualifications, which were looking at their experience, looking at how many projects they'd closed in the past, just their overall ability to finance the project. And then their financial capability was also to discuss were they capable as an entity in delivering the project from a financial standpoint. And once again, all of the teams are very strong in this area. The evaluation report summarizes the reviews and the interviews, and it also provides a summary scoring form. I've also provided for you summaries, and we handed those out, of the 6 teams. The summaries are an executive level summary. I know the names are questioned. Some of them have Red River in their name, and so it's hard to know who their team members are. And so I thought it would be helpful to the board members to have an executive summary that shows each of the team members along with their different components, along with their principal in charge and their lead negotiator. Attached to those summaries, you'll see 10 of their most relevant projects from an engineering standpoint and 10 most relevant projects from a construction standpoint. I thought that would really be the information that as board members you would be most interested in knowing. What you'll see from each of those 6 summaries are we had very strong teams that were all capable of performing the project, and it made the competition a very strong competition. The 6 teams were Lake Agassiz Partners, Red River Alliance, Red River Infrastructure Solutions, Red River Partners, Red River Valley Alliance, and Red River Valley Partners. Recommendations. The recommendation to shortlist the 4 was presented to the Diversion Authority Finance Committee yesterday. They made a recommendation to the Diversion Authority Board, this board, to approve the SOQ evaluation and the shortlist of the respondents. The concurrence occurred this morning. The Cass County Joint Board reviewed, approved, and adopted the SOQ evaluation report and approved the shortlist of respondents. So the member of the Cass County Joint Board has heard this presentation for the 2nd time today. The resolution before you, which is attached to the front of the SOQ, that approves and adopts the SOQ evaluation report, and it approves the shortlist of the following 4 respondents: Lake Agassiz Partners, Red River Valley Partners, Red River Valley Alliance, and Red River Partners. The next phase, you may have a question, where do we go from here? During the RFQ process and the shortlisting, you're really taking the teams from 6 down to 4, and those 4 will enter into an additional competition to compete on both a technical solution and a financial solution. So in essence, they've made it through the first gate, and now we have a new competition where everybody starts from 0 again. So all teams will start from 0 and compete against each other to see who can provide us with the best technical solution and the best financial solution. Following Diversion Board of Authority approval of the shortlisting, we'll send a formal notice to each of the 6 teams, notifying them they've either been shortlisted or they have not been shortlisted. The 4 shortlisted teams will be sent a request for proposal upon release by the Diversion Authority Board. That is tentatively scheduled for mid-December. And moving forward, next year there will be several one-on-one meetings with each of the 4 teams to further develop and refine that RFP, with the goal to having the final RFP in place by June of next year. When the final RFP is in place, the 4 teams will compete and bid against that final RFP on a technical basis and on a financial basis. The technical proposal from each team will be delivered first, and that'll just be a proposal that indicates how each team proposes to solve the project in a technical solution. It'll provide what the size of the bridges should be, the width of the channel, what types of solutions they have for the project. Followed shortly thereafter, you'll have a financial bid, which will be each of the team's financial bid on the bid they propose, first to construct the project and second to operate and maintain it over a period of 35 years. And so it is a 2-part process, and it'll be very in-depth and very competitive. During that process, it is very important that Diversion Authority Board members, along with staff and other members of the member entities, not have contact with the teams. All contact should only be between the Diversion Authority's authorized representatives and the proposer's authorized representatives. And that's really for the protection of the teams. They don't want to be in a situation where somebody can allege there was a violation of the protocol or some type of unfair advantage during the bidding process. And so I can answer any questions. We had quite an in-depth process to reach this conclusion. Once again, I'd like to thank all of the evaluation team members for all their hard work in this process.
John, what happens between now and June, when you said that around June, the technical presentation and followed by a financial presentation, all that? What happens between now and June?
In December of this year, we'll be issuing a final draft RFP. Over the course of the next 6 months following that, there'll be an opportunity for the teams to comment upon that RFP, and we'll further refine that RFP. So what it does is it allows, the P3 process allows you as an owner to engage in that dialogue with each of the teams on an independent basis to find out if there's other proposals that should be included within the RFP that all teams would bid against. And the idea with the P3 process is that is supposed to drive innovation out of the process, because you're actually hearing from the bidders prior to submitting that final RFP out to the market for bid. And you're used to, in most public contracts, where the owner's engineer prepares the plans and specs, and it goes out to the market without any market input. And so you don't know, the owner's engineer doesn't necessarily know if the solutions, if the technical solutions that they're proposing in the plans and specs will yield the best result for the performance of the construction. And the P3 process is supposed to drive that innovation into the RFP before it's actually bid upon. So I think Mike also had a comment or two.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. Just a few brief comments, providing a brief report on behalf of the 2 co-executive directors. As John noted, this is really the conclusion of a first 90-day process that will open the door to our next process, which is the full RFP. A significant amount of technical review and consideration was given in this process, and that list of names that you saw earlier in John's remarks, we're going to really lean heavily on these individuals again in the RFP process. I just want to thank them, all of the technical staff from the cities, counties, as well as the water board, for all of their help. It's been invaluable to this date, and it's going to continue to be invaluable as we move forward in our RFP process. I think it's really important to note that while these individuals represented their individual entities, they came together as a cohesive team to do the best that they could do for the project as a whole, and they really brought a lot of critical input. And John noted several hours of time involved. We think that anywhere, probably as little as 40 hours, as much as maybe 70 or 80 hours of time as individuals, they came and devoted to this process. So you add that all up, and you have this half dozen people or so investing hundreds of hours of their own time to make this project happen at the statement of qualification stage. I think it's also appropriate that we thank John. He has led a really robust and very good process, excellent process. John, as general counsel, did an excellent job, as well as the Ashurst and Ernst & Young representatives. Also want to thank Aaron and the Corps observers. Their role and input was also very much appreciated, as well as our CH2M representatives. So we look forward to the next stage in the process. As one of the co-executive directors, again, we just want to acknowledge everybody's efforts to date. I also wanted to note for the board, as we did with the joint board this morning, as well as the finance committee yesterday, that as one of the two co-exec directors, I've reviewed the evaluation report. I certainly concur with the findings that are contained in the executive summaries that the board has in front of you, and support the recommendation of the short list as presented. Happy to answer any questions, but again, thank John and thank all of our technical staff for all of their efforts. Thank you.
Well, let me also join in with acknowledging appreciation for all of the committee and the work that they did. John, certainly in terms of kind of leading the charge on this. The other day, we had a couple of us had a little bit of a briefing on this, and I asked John, did you go somewhere to find a benchmark or a cookbook of, how to go through all this? And he said, no, that he came up with a lot of this as just being a fair way of approaching it, and I certainly would agree. There's been extensive thought given to this whole process to ensure that we are as fair as we possibly can be and getting the right information. So, John, I thank you, and I thank the committee. I would open this to any questions anyone might have of the process or the proposed 4 consortiums, or anything you might have of John or Mike.
Move to approve.
Okay, the motion would be to approve the resolution for narrowing this down to the 4 that were mentioned. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any, Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. Sometimes maybe you come up with an organization that you want to hire that seems to be a good fit, maybe a better fit than some of the others. Maybe your ranking reflects that, maybe not. Do you need to look at 4?
The question of whether to shortlist 3 or 4 is a question that's often debated. The teams were we made the decision early on in the RFQ phase, when we developed the RFQ, to limit it to either 3 or 4. The industry really, and the industry input throughout this process has been to either shortlist 3 or 4. And the reason why you would only shortlist 3 or 4 is each of these teams are going to put tens of millions of dollars into preparing a bid. And the more teams you add to that process, the less confidence you give the industry that this is a real, legitimate process. There have been some projects in the country where the authority has not had the foresight to shortlist out of the recipients they received. We've seen some projects that have simply shortlisted all of the respondents, and the industry doesn't look at that very favorably because it doesn't look to them like a real process from the exterior. And so it's very important in this process to demonstrate to the market that we have a real process, that we have a credible process. With respect to looking at the teams, I can assure you, I took every measure to make sure that each of the teams were evaluated on their own strength rather than as a comparison. And to that, we assured that each team was evaluated on its own individual merits, and then when we reached the final scoring, then the decision of whether shortlisting, 3 or 4 was made. So there was no try to adjust the numbers to make sure that it fit a certain predetermined result. And I think from the evaluation team standpoint, there probably was no, we didn't know if it would be 3 or 4. It just, the competition was such a strong competition that the evaluation team felt that it was appropriate to take 4 through the process. Because we did have 6 very strong teams.
Commissioner Pollak, did you see the scoring results on the last page? No? Okay, thank you.
See, for some reason, I wasn't recognizing that these are the 4 that are going to be actually doing the bidding. I thought there was a further winnowing process, but this really is almost the final winnowing.
That's correct. These 4 will now go into a competition to compete on a technical solution and a financial solution. And we would foresee that technical solution would occur likely in late August, that you'll get the results of that technical solution. So they'll propose a technical solution, and all 4 teams will compete on a technical solution basis. And then all 4 teams will compete on a financial basis to see who can deliver the project to you in a most effective financing way. We envision that you would have commercial close on the contract for the channel construction sometime the last quarter in 2017, with a financial close to take place in 2008 or first quarter of 2018. You may question why we split the commercial and the financial close. The reason is we want to have a solid commercial deal reached so that the team, the prevailing team, can then take that to their financial institutions, and we have a financial close after that. Some financial institutions like to see an executed commercial close before they finalize their financing, because what they'll do is they'll put out financing that holds their financing bid to the individual consortium open for 120 or 180 days between the commercial close and financial close. And during that period, to ensure that we do not have a failure to reach financial close, we will ask for a security in the form of an expedited bond, so that if for whatever reason we didn't reach financial close, we would be able to pull on that expedited bond and recoup our costs for their procurement.
Any other questions? Not, we'll take the roll.
Mr. Vaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Sterling? Yes. Mr. Pollak? Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Ms. Williams? Yes. Ms. Otto? Yes. Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted? Yes. Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, and once again, I'd like to thank the evaluation team and all our consultants. We could not have done this without their help. I mean, that a lot of people put a lot of time into this effort to get us to this phase, and this now starts a new phase of the process where we'll have a brand-new competition, and hopefully will result in a solution that delivers a really efficient project to the Diversion Authority.
Good work. Good work. Okay, draft order with regard to change orders. Being handed out here.
Oh, do you want, no. No, you're up, yeah.
Mr. Chair, members of the Diversion Authority Board, we are distributing out a draft resolution regarding the procedure for approval of contracts and change orders and other items. This is not an action item today. I met with the Finance Committee yesterday to talk about the procedure that, as an organization, you want to utilize for the approval of contracts, approval of change orders, field directives, et cetera. We spent a lot of time discussing that, and I know that's been an issue that some of the members have been asking about. How are we going to operate as an organization when it comes to contracting actions? And so I wanted to make sure that you are aware that we are working with the different staffs from the different member entities, along with the consultants, on developing a procedure 4 contracting actions. And I distributed this yesterday, and we had some very good discussion at the Finance Committee meeting, and we're going to do some further development of the resolution. But I wanted to get it in your hands and just kind of do a brief overview. Pursuant to the Joint Powers Agreement, the contracting actions, if a task is sent out to a member entity such as land acquisition to the joint board, that would not be covered by this resolution. Those contracts would be held by the joint board, and they would have to follow their normal contracting procedures. This procedure is essentially for contracts held by the Diversion Authority, and this procedure does not cover the P3 process. This relates to your standard contracting process. So,
Is this the result of your conversation in Finance Committee, or?
At least one part.
yeah, it's a start. It's a start. And so we're not asking for any action today, but if you have any input, feel free. And I think we were going to have a meeting with the chair of the Finance Committee to maybe discuss some further refinement of the procedures.
Mr. Chairman, we had a fairly lengthy discussion yesterday on this topic, and as I would predict, everybody on this committee has a different perspective of how change orders and construction projects should be managed philosophically, who has the authority to make approvals on certain levels of spending, et cetera. And we kind of covered the gamut yesterday. And one of the things I thought we should propose today is maybe it's myself as chair and chair of the full authority and part of the technical review committee sit down and have a discussion on what makes sense. Because in my opinion, what's drafted today is not what I believe we should approve. I think there's a certain amount of fiduciary responsibility this authority should have at certain levels of change orders that are beyond the scope of work. And so how do we best set up a policy that is clear, straightforward, and works in a timely fashion for the life of the project? And we could have a full discussion here at the authority, or we could have kind of a working group come back and say whether it's full authority and the technical review committee, and come together with some kind of proposal in November, I think is, John, what you were hoping.
Correct. That was our goal, was to have something formalized before the board in November. And we just wanted to have a starting place, something on paper with, after kind of reflecting what our current practices are, and then adding in some decision points for the Finance Committee and the Diversion Authority Board about how, from a policy level, you want change orders and contracting actions to occur.
Okay. I'd be happy to join you and anyone else in visiting more about it. I would ask the board to take the time to review this and get any of your thoughts. Maybe Twist, maybe Tony, we could hold off for a week or so, see if there's anything that surfaces with board members, and then part of our discussion. So, and then it'll come back to us, to the board. So, okay. Thank you. Contracting actions.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, a couple of professional services contracting actions, and then some construction change orders we'll talk about here in just a bit. First of all, though, just a glance at the current 2016 program annual budget. Again, $237 million authorized for this year. We're well within that in all categories. As you recall, we did a little bit of a reallocation of money at your last meeting in order to cover the local share for the Army Corps. That payment has been made, and you can see there the remaining balance of the budget for this year, and we're well within what we expect we'll need to spend going forward this year. We have two professional services actions that I would ask the board to consider today. The first is an action for AECom, which is doing our cultural resources investigation. This action is actually just a reallocation of funds within their contract in order to more appropriately keep them on the right task. So we're not asking for any increase in their budget, just a reallocation of funds. The second is for HMG, and this is to initiate the design of the I-29 interstate crossover of the southern embankment. So this work is, again, pure design work. It's simply for conceptual design. We'd like to get them on this as soon as possible, as, of course, the Corps is beginning their work on the inlet structure, and we certainly want to be, not slowing them down as they continue their design work going forward on the southern embankment.
The rest, following this, everything else is change orders, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The rest are going to be construction change
Okay,
orders.
so
Yes.
why don't we take these, they seem pretty straightforward.
The two items, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the two items, just brief this on.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second? Mayor?
I have a question. I thought we were going to go through finance for these beforehand. Did that not happen?
So I guess what John is talking about with the contracting actions that
Is a process that we will do if we like the process, but for now, these didn't go through a process? Or who is recommending it? Maybe
This
you
is
could
the
kinda help
technical
me.
advisory group through the executive directors are recommending this at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, herein lies kind of the unrest or the uneasiness that this was not discussed yesterday, but we want to get a policy so it's clear moving forward. And so this is the first time we've seen it as well. So we'll have to, I think, have a discussion on it here to
Okay. Mayor, do you have any question, besides the fact of not going through finance committee, anything that you would like answered on this?
In this summary format, yeah, I wouldn't even know what to ask first, frankly.
It's, there is more detail on that.
And we're reading them now as people are talking. See, the process is a little,
Yeah.
Not good.
That's what we'll be addressing. It was part of the material sent out, when was that?
Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
okay, then I missed it. That would be my fault.
The idea would be the technical committee does recommend this, and the executive directors have looked at it and concur. So for us, as elected officials, you're saying this did run through that usual process.
for now, Mr. Chairman.
In the future, I'm presuming, Commissioner
In the
Grinberg,
future,
you would
I-
have finance committee look at this, recommend it to this board, and we would just agree. Is that
Monday
correct?
would have been
Is one option, or how much detail does the full board want to get into? And that, what I mean by that is, we had a discussion yesterday that a director or co-directors, anything up to 10,000 would have authority. 10,000 to 100,000, technical committee would have authority. I'm a little uncomfortable with giving a committee authority to spend money when we're judicially responsible. So then levels above that, the $500,000, for example, should we have full presentation on such a change request at the full authority? Those are the things we're trying to figure out and put in a policy so it's clear, so that the teams know exactly how to move forward and present.
Any other questions? Take the roll.
Mr. Bagno?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Pollak? Yes. Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn? Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Whalen?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted? Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so for the construction change orders, I'm going to ask Ty to come up and present these and brief you in detail on those.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So, a quick note on the construction change orders, just to be clear. Although this is the same situation as the previous change orders or previous authority work directives you just reviewed, each of these 5 construction change orders have been validated by the technical assistance group as being appropriate and necessary for the project and not being beyond the intent of the project. I heard the comment earlier about out of scope, so these are not added scope items. Another note is we have started evaluating the record of change orders on each of these projects. I don't have the exact details with me today, but I can say that to date on each of these change orders, with the exception of one, which is a very small value with asbestos context to it, so I would submit that that one's a bit of an outlier, but the rest of these projects that you'll see here, the value to date of change from the contract award is considerably less than 5% of the contract value. And in industry standards, that's doing pretty good, particularly since most of the change on many of these projects has been the result of unsuitable materials, differing subsurface conditions, so things that are truly outside of the knowledge of the design team when the project was put together. So although these projects have not gotten the financial review that the board is discussing, financially, these change orders, in my personal opinion, are within acceptable limits, so to speak, of what the construction industry would like to see. I know that's not a complete answer to the concerns of many of the board members, but I did feel it was important to bring that up today.
Mayor.
With that in mind, good information.
Yes,
So when we developed our budgets, did we assume a 5 to, at least a minimum of 5% change order probability in there?
My understanding is that the budgets for the project was developed based on the engineer's estimate for the contract with a contingency value that is more than 5%.
Okay.
I wasn't part of that, so I don't know the exact details, but conceptually, that's how I understand these projects were set up.
Commissioner Pollak?
Yeah, not on that question, but further comment. I rely heavily on the advice and recommendation of the Technical Review Committee, and that's what I put a lot of stock in. But one of the things that I don't know is how many of those individuals actually have eyes on the project. For me, I'm kind of a visual guy, and if I look at it, it's a lot easier for me to understand it than if I read about it. And I don't ever look at any of these multi-$1,000 change orders that come in front of us. But I trust that the Technical Review Committee has looked at it with their eyes, but I don't know that. And so I guess I would ask that question now, that, you know, of the Technical Review Committee, how many people are close enough to the project that they actually see what's being addressed?
Of the technical staff, there is one who is regularly at all project meetings and on site at least once a week on each of the projects. We also brief the technical staff every week at the TAG meeting of the status of the projects and upcoming change orders and such. I don't know if any of the TAG members would like to speak any more to that.
Can we have a show of hands of the group that's involved in that? There you go. Commissioner Grinberg.
I'll come back when you're finished. You're finished now, or with your...
Unless you'd like me to proceed with the...
Please proceed, and I'll
Okay.
have a comment at the end.
Okay, thank you. So the first change order today is for the 4th Street Pump Station project, a total of $147,000 and change. The majority of this is in 2 items. Actually, I'm sorry, let me back up. There are 3 components to this one. First, there are 3 old changes. A couple of board meetings back, I had briefed that there were change items that we had deferred while we were working through the box culvert deficiency issues. 3 of those we included in, I think, 2 change orders ago. They were very easy, took care of them right away. I had briefed that there were 3 remaining items that still had a little bit of information we needed to follow up on with the contractor and negotiation. Those 3 are included in this change order today. So now all old changes on this project that had been deferred will be taken care of with this change order. It also includes 3 items that have previously been approved through work change directive, which, as a refresher, a work change directive is a tool that we use for directing the contractor to perform work, but it does not actually change the contract value or contract time until it's approved by this board in change order. So we use those when the work is necessary enough that the project can't proceed or delay would cause additional cost or some such. So of those 3 previously approved work change directives, one of those alone is $45,000 for the stilling well and transducer issue we had talked about 2 meetings ago. And then the largest component of this $147,000 is for more asbestos and unsuitable material. When the contractor demolished the existing pump stations and then went to remove the existing stormwater pipes that go through the levee, we found that more of those pipes had been coated in asbestos material, and there was a considerable rubble in the concrete or in the levee that needed to be removed. Any questions on that one? Next project is F1N, which is the flood wall project north of the new pump station. You see this one as a deduct. The total deduct is about $27,000 for changes to aesthetic concrete at the North Plaza. This is to match changes in the southern counterpart project in the South Plaza. And so that simplifies the construction there. There's also the addition of bridge lighting that, as the contractor was finishing the work, contractor, the designer, and the city determined that it was appropriate to add a repair. Help me out if I'm missing some of the details, but this was an owner-requested change to improve the bridge lighting for an overall net deduct of $22,000. The next project, F1S, which is the flood wall project south of the new pump station. The majority of this cost, this $76,000, is for a previously approved work change directive to construct a new parking lot at Case Plaza. This was, as we briefed during the work change directive, this was a negotiated item between the owner and Case Plaza, or whoever the parent company of that is. And this was in order to facilitate the acquisition of that property. This is an option that was negotiated after design of the project, so the project could not have included it, and we were instructed to go ahead and include this and add it to the project now. The next project, F2, which is the levee project on the former Park East apartment site. This one is a large one, $207,000. Almost all of this is for removal of unsuitable material. So this project is a levee. When levees are constructed, the first step is to excavate an inspection trench. The inspection trench digs below grade to determine that the subgrade material for the levee is okay, that it's good clay, we've reached native material, etc. This inspection trench found that there was considerably more unsuitable material on this site than the engineer could have expected. So there is a little bit of additional time for actually excavating that material. Most of this cost is for actually trucking it away. There's a whole host of other smaller changes, puts and takes with this contractor as the road got torn up and we found that utilities are not quite exactly in the location that the as-built showed, so small accommodations to allow the work to continue. And then finally, work package 42H2, which is the El Zagel Phase 2 levee. And most of this cost, about $6,100, is for flood wall caps. This is an item that was intentionally left out of the design at bidding because the style of flood wall caps would be dependent on the removable flood wall system that the contractor was allowed to choose. So after the contractor chose the specific system, the specific product that they intended to install, then the complementary flood wall caps could be selected. So this, the addition of $6,100 is a heavily reviewed cost between the owner and CH2M and HMG, and determined to be appropriate. So that's the added cost of the project to accommodate the known thing that was intentionally left out in the first place. There is also a couple of smaller costs associated for miscellaneous unknown items, as well as we're capturing additional time for the contractor to accommodate the sanitary sewer delay that was an external impact that the contractor had. We already accommodated the cost for that a couple of change orders or a couple of meetings ago, And now that we know the final time, we're including the time in this change order now.
Mayor and
It's just minor, I just want to kind of get a feel for the process. So when the contract was awarded to these, they were a specific dollar amount with plus whatever that ends up being, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So when you awarded the contract,
Uh-huh.
part of it was specifically that it was a dollar amount that they bid on, and knowing that there would be a specific, I mean, it was written in it that there would be a specific addition to it, right? Or just, you didn't know?
It was, I didn't construct that bid table, so I don't know exactly how they did it. There was not a blank in there. It was just understood by the design team and the design review team that this would be an item that would have to be added later. You're talking about the pier caps?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
sorry. Okay.
Commissioner.
Yeah, maybe just a couple added comments. You know, prior to the discussion with the change order process, and in part some of the discussion yesterday, I'd made the comment that, you know, with all the talent we have preparing this project and preparing the scope of work and what's going to be bid, you know, in a perfect world, that should be 95% accurate. So if we use the 5% as a rule of thumb with contingency, you know, Randy's done a nice job for our direction at the Finance Committee, putting together a budget that you can see on one page and all the detail below it. So on the right-hand lower corner is $2.2 billion. One of the line items is $159 million for contingency. And so as we align this change order policy back to the awards for contracts under scope of work, you know, our goal would be obviously to be at budget with those bids or less, and then have that contingency line that we have to manage this project. And, you know, my point earlier about philosophical differences, I'm sure we'd all have a different view of this, but my view is we own that $159, not the project managers, not the technical review committee. And the folks that are doing the work, that are looking for different options that need to present and go through a process to warrant that discussion and approval versus just a committee saying, we approve this, and us not having the knowledge of it. And so I think that's where we'll end up here in the next month or two. So at the end of the day, as this thing moves forward, it's going to be very clear and straightforward. But at the end of the day, where's the buck stop? You know, I've said that before. I think my first Diversion Authority meeting is, who's accountable? Who's accountable for these numbers? Well, at the end of the day, it's us. And so a committee is one approach, but at the end of the day, it's us. And we need to be sensitive to that, that the process, the teams, the committees, the work knows what our expectations are, that $159 million is just not for them to use. That's my opinion. But at the end of the day, we're going to figure out what we want collectively.
Okay.
So,
Ken?
I want to talk about a specific item on change order 06. So I think it was the very first one that you discussed with us.
Okay.
Change order 6, on the gate well lid changes. It's kind of an interesting discussion that's been laid out for us, and I read it earlier and I read it today. And the question that I have on that is, who's responsible, if there's a change in the plans, whose responsibility is to deliver the modified plans so that the contractor has the new plan? Would that be, does the owner go and pick that up and deliver it to the contractor?
It's between the design team and the construction management team. So HMG provides the updated plans, and CH2M is the construction manager and owner's representative. And CH2M is responsible for administering the contract, which includes writing the change orders and providing those plans to the contractor.
So if the contractor doesn't have the plans, you can't really say that it's his fault that he built it according to the plans that he had.
That's correct. That's correct.
Would you say the same thing about the owners? You know, the owners have paid for the plans, and they've paid for the redone plans, but should the owner be going and picking up those plans and delivering them to the contractor so that he knows that he has them?
No, the owner shouldn't. So I know the passage you're referencing in that, because I wrote it. And so that is an open discussion item with the owner staff right now, is determining who is responsible for that and how should it be handled.
So if we approve this today, then we're approving the payment of that, and that happens to be a disputed amount, it sounds like.
Correct. You're approving the payment to the contractor, because as you noted, regardless of what happened to the plans and who should have passed them, it's not the contractor's fault. So the contractor has incurred cost and done work that they're due. And so then for the diversion authority to square up with the contractor, then you're approving that payment there. And then, so then on the back side, or on the internal side then, is the owner staff, the engineer, and the construction manager reviewing what happened and who's actually responsible for that cost.
Well, in this particular case, it'd be real easy for us as in effect, the fiduciary agents to lose track of this. So will you make a point to keep us informed on how this particular item turns out?
Okay?
I might add, Tyler, you're up there and you're kind of taking the questions, fielding the questions. Randy, you've done this in the past. All of those people who raised their hands behind you, we certainly would welcome your comments through this process here if you believe that there's some of your comments that could help us with all of this change order and things like that. So we have people taking the heat, but there's also quite a few behind you, so I'm asking you to all participate in commenting on what's the best way to handle this. So, okay, welcome motion.
So I will say the motion that I would make would be to approve these change orders, but I don't want to make that motion if someone else has something that they wanted to discuss before we do that. Otherwise, to speed things along, I would move approval of the change orders.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Further comment, question? Take the roll.
Mr. Vano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman? Yes. Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Whalen?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted? Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is one more contracting action,
Oh, okay.
but it's not mine. But I did want to say that before I step away, we got our slides kind of goofed up, and so I did not do the construction update with the pictures and the bullets like normal. If you like, we can get those back on the screen. I can come back up and do the update, or I can give you the very quick update without the pictures, or we can just skip it all together. So,
You're doing just an update. You're not asking
correct.
for.
Yep, which is quite a bit,
Give
more
us,
positive news
give
than the
us
change
the,
orders.
Give us the verbal. quick note.
Okay, so it's been a beautiful fall so far. I wish all the rest of the days through November would be like today. Probably not, but everything's in really good shape. We have 2 pump stations online successfully. All of the flood wall along the former 2nd Street is in place. What remains is some road work between 3rd Avenue and the BNSF bridge. We're watching that one very close, but we do expect that 2nd Street will open sometime in November. 2 out of 3 of the levees projects that are being put in this year are finished, and we're starting the substantial completion and project closeout period for that. One of the levees, the one on the Park East Department site, we have some schedule concerns. There is plenty of good weather left for them to finish, and we're very proactively monitoring that schedule on a daily basis. So on the whole, everything is wrapping up just the way we want it, with the exception of the one project, which we, in all likelihood, will turn out fine, and we're very aggressively watching that one right now.
Sounds very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Public outreach?
There's actually, Randy, I don't know who has this one. It's the City of Fargo Utility Relocation Fiber Optic Line. I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, we missed.
So this is the last of the contracting item.
Right, this one.
Was it? I see it on the last page here.
Yeah, I think this is, and I apologize, I'm not intimately familiar with this, but this is a agreed upon repayment back to the city of Fargo from the Diversion Authority for the optic fiber relocation. So I think this is nothing, this is really simply a funds transfer that was agreed beforehand when this work, before this work began.
Do you need an action? Do you need a,
Yes, sir, we will.
Yeah, I think the previous one was change orders, so this is one that would require motion to approve. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Vaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Pollak? Dr. Mahoney?
aye.
Mr. Pepcorn? Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted? Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes.
Do we have anyone for the public outreach?
Rocky? I think maybe we have Rocky.
Rocky?
Yeah, apologize, the chair usually does this, and Roger is not here today. There's a number of people here that were at the outreach committee yesterday, so feel free to chime in with your thoughts, but there's a one-page handout in front of you talking about a number of different items. Just to focus on maybe the two biggest items going on, we have focused really heavily on getting back out to all the different groups that we regularly speak to 1 or 2 times a month. We've tried to hit them all here in the last month, and in the upcoming month, I think I have another 6 or 7 planned. A number of you on this board and in the audience have helped out at those presentations, and appreciate that. There's a list on here. Commissioner Sherling and I were at the Realtors Association, and just to show you the interest in this, we spoke to, I think, 250 people in the room. They said it was the biggest meeting they've ever had at one of their membership events. I think it's because Mary was headlining it, and so, but anyways, there's a lot of interest in the project, and I think the actions of the last couple of weeks have been a catalyst for the public to be re-engaged or interested in what's going forward, and so we've tried to take that cue from them and reaching out to a bunch of different groups. In addition to that, we've had a couple reportings to the North Dakota legislative bodies, both the State Water Commission and the Water Topics Overview Committee. Chairman Vaniel and Mayor Mahoney have done great work on that. Additionally, we are meeting with tomorrow with the local Minnesota legislative contingent and plan to work with them and move forward. You probably saw their letter to the editor today. If not, I think it was posted online. Take a look at that. They've sort of made some comments about the recent actions. Otherwise, just some of the numbers in our outreach thing, which I think is good. We had a 49% readership rate on our last newsletter item, which has got to be about as high as any newsletter could hope to get. And so again, it just shows that when we make news, people start to get re-engaged again. And it's always the tough part about public outreach for flood projects like this is you usually only care when it impacts your pocketbook or your safety. And so I think the last couple of weeks, people are maybe seeing both with the election coming up and the other actions. But we continue to have a couple thousand users a month on the FM diversion. We've been working on a number of videos. I think I don't think we've actually shown our whiteboard video, our little cartoon video at this board, but it's a fun video that got a lot of views on our YouTube page and been shared online a number of times. So if you haven't seen that, take a look at fmdiversion.com. I don't know if anybody has anything to add from the outreach committee.
Any questions for Rocky? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom is not here. Finance.
Yeah, we covered basically all the items we discussed yesterday between the SOQ and the change order process. We have some bills to approve if Kent wanted to talk about those. And Randy presented a final spreadsheet of how the numbers are starting to track. And I'm not sure if you're going to show that today or... Okay. So did a nice job, and you'll be pleased with the concise report that you get in one look on one piece of paper and all the detail you want on the back.
I did get a glimpse of that.
So that said, if Kent, if you had any comments on the bill requests or just... Or is there any questions on the bill request? Maybe is a better way of addressing it.
I don't have any specific comments other than of the $8.9 million being requested. Most of that is a reimbursement to the Cass Joint Water District. And of that, there's about a $5 million payment, or $5.8 million, relating to your share of the Mid-America Steel buyout. That was all pre-negotiated. That deal was closed a month or so ago, so that is passing through the system, and now we're paying the Resource District on that. So that would be the only comment I had.
Mayor, if you're ready for a motion, I'll move the approval of the.
Okay, we have a motion. Second? Paying the vouchers. Any comments or questions? Not, we'll take the roll.
Mr. Vaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney? Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mr. Grinberg?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Whalen?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted? Mr. Bradshaw?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other business before I turn it over to John? Not? Go ahead, John.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. We'll need a motion to go into executive session pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 440419 for the purposes of attorney-client consultation and update regarding matters arising out of or related to the Minnesota DNR's decision to deny the dam safety permit, safety and public waters permit application submitted by this diversion authority.
I think you all have a copy of that, of what John just read in front of you, so if you would just so move that motion.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go to executive session, and we'll, after that, we'll reconvene here to adjourn the meeting.